Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is the Paddock Podcast. That's Joe Smith, and it's Monday. Get involved in the channel comments. First of all, apologies for being a little bit late. We're going to be chatting about all things Manchester United, about Ruud van Nistelrooy, one of your favourite topics. Apparently the players want him to stay on, which makes me think, is he not pushing them hard enough? Is he not being a tough enough taskmaster that they'll love him? Hey, what's the matter with you? Hey, what is it? Spare the rod and spoil the child. You know, they don't need an arm around the shoulder. They need a kick up the backside, in my opinion. So we're getting into that. Also, as well, Gary Cotterill, who
his old tricks again.
Yeah, and his old tricks are being an absolute whopper to a potential or future Manchester United manager over in Portugal. Just being a clown. Just honestly, it does my head in. I don't know who he thinks he is. Anyway, we'll get into all that. Make sure you are hitting like, share, and subscribe. Josie, let's just talk a little bit before we get into Ruud van Nistelrooy stuff. Because me and you haven't spoken on camera post Chelsea.
No.
What did you make of the game yesterday?
I thought it was a pretty even game. It gave me a little bit of confidence, actually, because I thought if this Chelsea side's fighting for top four, they're not better than us. Then, you know, they looked all right. Palmer, obviously, good quality, did a couple of moments from Palmer. But we shut Palmer down pretty easily, really, or he had a bad day, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. I thought Chelsea made one really good chance, and it was that Madueke header. I thought that was the only one where I thought you should have scored that. United, on the other hand, had 2 or 3 that I thought we should have scored. It was a relatively even game in overall, so I'm not like gutted we didn't win, because I don't think we really deserved to. But if either team, if you had to pick someone that deserved to win, it was us. And they're fighting for top 4, so I think, I'm not putting the pressure on Amorim that you need to go and finish top 4, because I think start with an 8-point disadvantage, you're always going to struggle. But I do think that I look at the league this season, generally, and I don't see a particularly strong league. I think City are worse than they have been every other season except Pep's first season. I think in terms of their quality, their depth, and now they've got these injuries to Rodri as well, which are probably going to keep him out all season. And De Bruyne is not the player he was, and he's more injury prone than he was. I think that there's a lack in quality. Arsenal still can't score any goals. Liverpool, I think, will hit a bit of a wall at some point this season. I can't see him just carrying on this sort of form all year. And then you're on to teams like Villa, Chelsea, and Forest. Like, I think we can
Forest
do all right
really
this
well.
season. Yeah, I really do.
No, I think we can. The only concern I have is the lack of goals. And I don't necessarily know where the goals are going to come from. Obviously, Amorim's going to have his own style, his own tactics, his own methods or whatever, but it's still going to be difficult for him, because you've basically got a front three who, and even I'd throw Xerxes into that as well as 4, that don't look like they're going to score loads of goals so far this season, if we're being honest. I think Rashford, Xerxes and Højlund have all got, is it 1 goal so far in the Premier League? I know they've been injured. Højlund's been out. Xerxes didn't have a pre-season, so I'm not being, I don't want to be too dramatic with that. But you do worry, we're a quarter away through now, just past the quarter. Obviously, if that continues, they're going to end up with about 4 goals each. So they do need to step up a little bit. I think Garnacho, who's the top Premier League goal scorer, about 2. It was quite wasteful yesterday, wasn't it? I do like Alejandro Garnacho, but needs to take his chances better, and his decision making let him down massively. When he got a bit of a rollicking from Casemiro for that one as well, when he gave away the ball, when realistically he should have played was it Mazraoui down the line, and in the end he was just a little bit greedy and naive.
I think though,
that's my only worry
on the goal scoring thing. We are lacking an out and out consistent, reliable, top class scorer. Definitely, that's without question. We don't have a Haaland or a Salah or even a Son, these players who are. But Højlund's finishing isn't bad. He's a good finisher when he gets chances. If we can play in a system that provides more chances for him, I think he'll get goals. We know Rashford can get goals. It's not just a 30-goal season. He's also had 2 20-plus goal seasons. He's had, I think, a 17-goal season. More often than not, in the last 6 years, he's had sort of 20-goal seasons or above. So it's not like he can't. He can definitely push on from where he is now. I just think if we control games better, if we have a little bit of luck, I do think we can score more goals than we are. I can't imagine a world where, like you said, Rashford, Højlund, Garnacho and Xerxes have all got sort of 4 goals or less by the end of the season. That would be absolutely mad if it continues at this rate. It has to pick up. I mean, it doesn't have to, but I really do think it will. I just think get a bit of confidence, get a system moving in the right direction, make more chances. And the other thing, you look at the underlying numbers of all of these things, none of these players we're talking about across their career have proven themselves to be terrible finishers. Rashford isn't a terrible finisher. Look at his chances that he has and the number of goals that he scored overall. It's pretty much in line with other wingers. Like, he's a decent finisher in the grand scheme of things. Højlund is the same. He's not someone that has, like someone like Darwin Núñez throughout his career has consistently underscored from the amount of chances he's had. Timo Werner is a similar example. Like, across their time as footballers, they usually miss more than they score by comparison to their peers. Rashford isn't like that. Højlund isn't like that. So let's keep making them chances, and eventually this mad thing of us missing more chances than anyone else, it will slowly even itself out, especially with a bit of confidence. None of them are going to score 30 this season, obviously, but I do think that we can push on a little bit. Like that Chelsea side, it's nothing special, is it?
No.
It really isn't. They've got good players in there. Of course they have. They've signed 40 of them, so that you'd think they've got 11 decent ones by now. But no one there really stunned me. No one tore us apart. No one, looked like they, you couldn't do anything with them. I just think that we can push these teams, and we should be aiming for at least European football this season. Top 4 is probably out of the question, because when's the last time we finished 7 points safe in top 4, which is what Amorim would have to do from now to the end of the year to make it. But I think Europa League isn't out of the question whatsoever. I think that's very much in play, personally.
Yeah, I agree, to be honest with you. Yeah. And I think we should be aiming for that top 4. We should be looking at going, we can do this.
Yeah.
And you make a point against Chelsea. I thought they've got some decent players. Cole Palmer was relatively quiet, wasn't he? But we know what he can do, so there's no point in dismissing him.
No.
Casado obviously took his goal well, and then it's all again, you get all them reminders that United could have got him for 5 million 3 years ago, whatever it was, but obviously we didn't, so who cares? Yeah. Nicholas Jackson's one of those players who can look terrible, yet will end the season on like 25 goals.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how's that happened? But he does score goals. So they've got some decent players there. Manchester United have a lot of good players though, and I do think that. And there's a core to build around. You don't forget as well, you've got an out-and-out left-back to come back into the side, hopefully in Luke Shaw, eventually. It's going to be a little bit of a bonus. That was a bonus, he never plays. Kobbie Mainoo, can't ignore him coming back into this team. He's a huge player for Manchester United. Yeah. So him coming back into the side obviously helps. And then the manager's got his own ideas. So I feel like cautiously optimistic. I just do worry, because we're looking at it, and I mentioned it this morning in the news, 9 goals this season. I think, we've got like one more than Southampton or whatever it is, and teams like that. And you consider how those goals have been spread out as well. 3 against Southampton, 2 against Brentford, and the other 4 against the other 8 games. It's not good enough. Needs to be better. Manchester United, you're right, we have got people that can finish. It's better to have players that are capable of getting, goals rather than just it's beyond them. They can score goals. They just need to get into the better positions. And it's quite ironic that probably Xerxes got in the best position yesterday, and yet it didn't really happen for him.
No.
And whereas Højlund didn't really get into those positions. The only time he got in the box, he did win a penalty, to be fair to the kid. But
that was off an overhit touch.
Yeah, but it wasn't. He was going nowhere.
No.
Robert Sanchez did us all a favour there, because he should have just left him, because he was going. There was no way he was even keeping that in play, let alone getting a shot off. So it was a bit of a gift. That is a slight concern. Get involved in the chat in the comments. Let us know what you think. We are going to talk about Ruud van Nistelrooy and what he's, the reasons why Manchester United players want him to stay. Brian Casey says, we've got a pretty young team for Amorim to work with, and obviously his own players he'll want to bring in. Confident he can build something good. Hedgie says, United need a new attack. Liam Cohen says, Chelsea also have thousands of players, whereas United have a few first-team players.
They do have thousands of players.
They do, literally.
There's a Chelsea player in there.
Half the stand yesterday was just their bench.
Yeah, it was.
Like, do you know what I mean? They were overflowing.
I think it was 25,000 of the 75,000 were Chelsea players, weren't they?
Just don't want to dwell on the game yesterday, but I just wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
I know obviously you have it on low or whatever, but I saw Jamie Redknapp was criticising the atmosphere at United. I didn't think it was that bad. Did it sound bad from where?
It wasn't one where I noticed it, sort of pin drop atmosphere kind of thing. I thought it just. I do think generally, football atmospheres aren't what they were even 20 years ago. I can't comment on 30, 40 years ago when people seem to think they were at their peak in the sort of 70s and 80s or before. Yeah. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend I can. But I think that I don't know. I think. The ticket prices obviously are an issue. The fact that you can't really, ticket prices have gone up far more than wages have gone up in the last sort of 15 years. That's an issue, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that less emphasis on young fans going in, as Steve always mentioned, that's a great point. The average age of match-going fans has sort of gone up over the last 20 years by almost 20 years. It's basically the same people who were going 20 years ago. There isn't that sort of youthful energy in crowds as much as
you don't feel like there's a second wave. When I was a kid, there was the older Reds we all used to look up to. When I say older, they were probably like 20.
Yeah.
And they had the Reds that were older than them that they used to look up to.
Yeah.
And then, you get to a certain age and then there's all these others. You see them at games like the younger lot, and there's fewer of those sort of coming through, I think.
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, look at the number, look at the average ages of people attending football matches. It just is getting older. And that is a bit of an issue. And look at any of these matches. I was seeing the other day, did you notice, I can't remember what game, I think it was... I don't want to get the team wrong, but it was an Argentinian side anyway. And there was that footage of the flares and stuff before the game. Did you see that? Basically, the pitch looked like it was on fire. There was that many flares. It was just carnage. But when you look at the zoomed-in shots, it's young people, predominantly young men, who are in those crowds. It's not blokes in their 60s turning up with flares and stuff. And that's no diss to blokes in the 60s, obviously. No. But you need a variety of people in the crowds. And I also think more than ever there's an emphasis on sort of tourism and football matches being a tourist endeavour, which again, fair enough, if you want to go to a match, that's up to you, but then you're less likely to be sort of chanting and singing and having that kind of fan experience if you're there to watch football from a tourist perspective. There's loads of things that go into it. I also think VAR is a killer of atmosphere in grounds, because just when a goal goes in, instead of having 5-10 minutes, sometimes, as you'll know, as most people will know, a goal can be the catalyst of even a single song being sang for 15 minutes in a row sometimes. When a goal goes in, you will sing about that player for 10 minutes in a row. Yeah. And yet now a goal goes in, you cheer it, and then you go silent for a minute and a half while they check it. And it's hard to pick that momentum back up again. Like, there's loads of things that go into it.
Yeah, it does feel like great points there. I agree with all of that. VAR is a thing. I always forget about that. I hate it, man. I do. I know I'm on my own, and most people, so I'm not on my own, but I think the majority of people think, it does more good than bad. I don't. I think it does. Just because, for me, it just ruins that. The best moment you have as a fan is that split second when a ball goes in the back of the net, and you've got that winner. Like Diallo's winner against the Scousers was just magical. Yeah. It was, Kobbie Mainoo's goal against City in the FA Cup final, or going back further, obviously you could talk about Ollie's winner in the Nou Camp and all the rest of it. But then you sort of take that away a little bit sometimes. I think the reason that Mainoo and Diallo's goal was so good because there was no question of VAR.
Yeah, no chance.
There was no, actually, is he offside or do we have to wait for 2 minutes to decide if we can properly celebrate? And the lad next to me, when Marcus scored the equaliser in that 4-3 against Liverpool, he didn't celebrate because he was convinced there was a handball in the build-up. Because you never used to worry about that because if it hadn't been flagged, that you wouldn't be...
Yeah, it's a goal.
But now you're like, waiting because he was convinced that McTominay had handled it and that there was going to be a VAR decision, and it just kind of spoils it a little bit for me. Yeah, I've always been a little bit wary of I've rolled it back. I used to do it a bit more when I was younger, but laying into City about the empty head all the time because I think there are mitigating circumstances. I mean, City have always been a bit of a shambles when it comes to attendances anyway. It's nothing new. But I do think there are mitigating circumstances, especially with the amount of games we play as well. And even, I took my lad yesterday, which was an experience. I was telling you before, he was asking me a few questions about what certain chants meant. And there was a guy behind me who was shouting, berating the referee, and my son turned to me and he went, "Dad, what's a nonce?" And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a long afternoon. So someone who's not very nice, son.
Stay away from him.
Yeah, just stay away. You know what I mean? I was like, I think it might be the family stand next season. Yeah. So yeah, you take your lad or whatever, or you go with, you take your daughter or your family. It costs even more. Even season tickets are a day do. I know it's sort of meant to lower the price overall, but it is, and we're playing United are playing like 2 games a week now regularly. Yeah. There's no, I know we have international breaks and stuff. There's no sort of gap for that or sort of lull in that. It's every 3 or 4 days there's a game, and a lot of them are obviously half of them at home, but we get a lot of home fixtures, don't we, in terms of the cups and stuff. So yeah, it can be difficult, and it just annoys me a little bit as well. I know I've got me sort of Manchester United fan and anti, I don't like Scousers giving it to us thing with Jamie Redknapp. But you're sat there on Sky Sports, which has been one of the causes of the death of atmospheres in grounds. Moaning about the atmosphere at a game where I didn't think the atmosphere was that bad personally. No. I thought from where I was stood it was decent. I thought the Chelsea fans were a bit erratic, but they at least gave it a bit of a go, more than some fans I've seen this season at Old Trafford. So yeah, I was a bit surprised when I got home. What was it even last night? It was this morning when I saw it on Twitter. The little clip of Jamie Van Nat just saying, it's like COVID times. I think, well, is it? I don't quite agree with that one. A couple of comments before we get into something else. Glenn F says, get hitting the like button, people. He's a hard-working lad, he's Jay, as is Joe. He also adds there on the next one. Good lad.
Thanks.
Santa Notch says, tomorrow's game will break TV records. It will, I think. That's Sporting Lisbon, my second favourite club, playing Manchester City.
You watching?
Yeah. Got to, haven't I? Yeah. Are we?
I'll be watching it.
I'll be watching it, yeah. It's one of those where if Sporting win, if City win, it's meaningless.
Yeah.
Because it's got nothing to do with Manchester United whatsoever. Team. It's a different team, different club. Also, look at the resources that Sporting have got. Look at what City have got. City have obviously, been in 2 Champions League finals in the last 4 years, whatever it is, and have won it. Sporting, I don't think they've ever won it, or if they have, forgive me. Certainly not had the pedigree of recent years as some of the other Portuguese clubs that we've seen in that competition. But if Sporting win, then it's massive, and it shows that Amorim's a better coach than Pep.
And he can do it on a shoestring as well.
Yeah.
He can do it without spending, hundreds of millions of pounds. He can do it the old school way. And basically, that is 3 points for Manchester United if Sporting win tomorrow. Well, it's a 6-pointer, isn't it? Because we're both going for top 4. So if Sporting win tomorrow, United gets 6 points, I think, in the league.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. He can. Amorim as well. He knows a bargain when he sees one, doesn't he? Yeah. He's done very well on a bit of a shoestring. And you know who else know a bargain? Manscaped. Because our friends over at Manscaped have got you covered.
He's done it again.
They've got you covered.
How have you done it?
You know what I mean?
Unbelievable.
It just comes to me.
Unbelievable.
But, I'm on tablets. They have got the beard and balls bundle for you. And yes, that does exactly what it says on the tin. You've got the beard hedger to groom your beard to a nice length, because there's a 20 length options. You can see there, Joseph. He's gone for I think Joe has mastered the Italian footballer from the 80s.
I think it's very much a Nocerino / Pirlo kind of beard.
I see you with an headband.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Shorts that are probably a little bit too short for you.
Just a little bit.
Do you know what I'm saying there,
Let's just say there's not just one ball on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? That's all I'll say. Multi-ball system.
He's got the multi-ball system in his pants.
And because of of course, the Lawnmower 5.0,
brilliant.
I've managed to shave little hexagons into the balls.
Hexagons, brilliant. Yeah. So it looks like an old school football.
It looks like an old school football.
Love all that.
I can do that because there's a light on it. It's waterproof, so I can do it in the dark or in the rain. There's also a multifunctional on-off switch.
We love that. Because sometimes you want it on.
Yeah.
And then other times you don't.
Yeah.
So having an on-off switch.
Yeah. It's not like a sparkler that once you light it, it's just on until it dies. Yeah. You can turn this on and off.
Right. Can I just say?
What?
I love Manscaped.
No, you don't.
And I do.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, you do.
I actually do.
Yeah.
Right. And we've all got our Manscaped products. We're all very grateful for what they do for the channel. But I think it is kind of bonkers that we push the idea that there's an on-off switch.
No, but multifunctional is the lock, Jack. Not just that it turns off and on.
To me seems like... Is that like everything about Manscaped is revolutionary, right?
Yeah.
It is. Because we've tried but shaving our balls and our beards with all sorts of stuff. It doesn't work anywhere near as well as a Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. That made my life just immeasurably better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now you've got the beard edger with the titanium coated stainless steel blades as well. Just unreal. The multifunctional on-off switch though, is that part of this revolution?
I think it's part of it. But the thing is, if you're not impressed by that, you will be impressed by the multiple heads. So there's the foil blade, which gets closer than ever. That's brand new with the 5.0.
Yeah.
And, of course, the classic trimmer as well.
Yeah.
So whether it's on, off, or locked, you've still got absolutely revolutionary technology with Manscaped. So use the code in the description, Paddock24, to get 20% off and free shipping. Your balls will thank you.
Absolutely revolutionary technology. Wasn't that the name of the street gang you were in Warsaw?
No, it wasn't the street gang. Yeah, ART gang. If you want ART gang, fuck off.
Did you go around tagging things in crayon so it'd wipe off quite easily?
Well, it was a whiteboard marker actually. Yeah, on glass. So yes, obviously we want to get our message across. We don't want people to have to get the terps out. It's that kind of vibe. Yeah, up the ART gang.
Yeah,
probably get them all in there.
I heard rumours that one of you at one point did get a police caution.
Yeah, we did.
That was, I mean, it was a case of mistaken identity. But
it was. Yeah, we were just we happened to look like tall man, brown hair, but it was pretty risky. Let's just say that much.
Yeah, so there was a conditional discharge involved. That's all I'm going to say.
You didn't want to mess with us.
No one did.
And one of us got a foot infection once. Which was
do you know what I mean? I wouldn't say that's like a gangland gun shooting wound. But it's similar.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
Someone cut their toe on a bit of glass running away from the, one of the old ladies that lived next door. So that turned into a little bit of gangrene, mate.
I can't wait to see you to write that book you're going to write on the gangs of Worksop. Canada Dave, yes, you can, because he's Canadian.
Is he not Canada VE?
Canada VE?
Yeah.
All right, Canada VE says Ruud must leave, or Amorim will have a target on him.
Well, let's read it.
Let's talk about that. Go on, you've got it there on your big screen.
Sky Sports News can reveal there is a swell of support to keep Ruud van Nistelrooy at Manchester United. They say Man United players want Ruud van Nistelrooy to remain at the club when Ruben Amorim takes charge as their connector, appreciating the way he has communicated with them. If you scroll down, let me just get a little bit more into this. Ruud van Nistelrooy is esteemed by United's leadership group for the way he carries himself, along with all the staff that serve first team operations. No concrete decisions have been taken on the makeup of Amorim's backroom team yet, but the incoming head coach does want to bring in 5 of his colleagues from Sporting, including his longtime assistants Carlos Fernandez and Adelio Candido, as well as the experienced Emmanuel Ferro, who operates in that role. So United players supposedly want Van Nistelrooy to stay on because he's all nice to him and that. What do you think?
I mean, it's slightly concerning if it's true. You think, well, is he just being nice because he's the caretaker teacher and wants the kids to be, not to cause any problems? Or is that just his style of management? Is that the way he works? I personally want Ruud van Nistelrooy to stay on. I think it'd be a good move to keep him on. I think to have someone who knows the club, who's been there a little while. I know he's not been there long as a coach, but he was there as a player for quite a few years as well. It might help Ruben Amorim, rather than just having a sort of a complete backroom staff of people who don't know Manchester United and are all new to it. But it's ultimately got to be the manager's decision or the head coach's decision. Because if he doesn't feel like he can work with him, he doesn't feel like he's got a useful role for him, if he doesn't feel like he needs him, then it's pointless keeping him on. He's not a mascot. He's not Fred the Red. He's a club legend who is
set to stay on, by the way, Fred the Red.
Yeah.
He's set to keep his place. Although Amorim did try and bring in a new mascot.
Did he?
Yeah.
That must have been, such a heated exchange in that boardroom.
It was.
Or, when they're going over the contracts and it's like, what's this at the bottom here? Who's this?
Yeah, who's Sonny the Sporting mascot? Why would he come with you? You having all your coaches and the mascot from Sporting Lisbon.
And why is he on $5 million a year?
That's ridiculous. And why is it Mancini's head? Why is he getting paid £5 million a year by everyone all the time?
We are Manchester City.
Yeah.
So listen, you want Ruud to stay, but he's a proud man as well. He's not going to want to stay if he's not wanted, is he? I remember when David Moyes took over, and he brought Jimmy Lumsden and Steve Round with him. And that was disastrous because you basically had a manager who was a little bit out of his depth anyway, and he brought coaches who were both out of depth, and you could just tell the players didn't respect them, didn't respond to them, and it just didn't work. And I think that had he kept on Benny Millenstein and maybe Mike Phelan as well, he would have given himself a better chance. I'm not saying he'd have been a success. It was probably beyond him anyway, but I think we certainly wouldn't have finished 7th. I think he might have even managed to see it through to the next season or whatever and sort of had a go at it, whereas he never really did that, did he? Because I think there was so many rumours and reports that the players just weren't happy with these two coaches, and you could kind of see it. Do you
think footballers are a bit hypocritical?
Massively, but explain the question.
Without going into sort of names and particulars, like we hear all the time from like former United players about how this squad is unprofessional and they're not doing it, and they've kicked out another manager and all this sort of stuff, and how their standards were so high under Fergie. And yet you constantly hear stories about those eras of like, we didn't like David Moyes because we couldn't have chips, or because, he changed the way we kicked the ball around in training, or like, oh, I used to get pissed every night, but it was all right because I scored the next week. And then now, like, Rashford goes out to Belfast and he's, a disgrace and he's letting the club down and all that. Like, I just think like all these things that we kind of are led to believe never happened before, and United are in this uniquely shit situation. They've all happened under Fergie, most of them. Like people falling out. Like Roy Keane, our captain, one of the best players we've ever had, left Man United, got booted out of Man United because he fell out with Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah.
The same happened to Ruud van Nistelrooy, who's back now. Like, these are some of the best players we've ever had. And they got the Jadon Sancho treatment or the Cristiano Ronaldo treatment. Like, and we act like, oh, Ten Hag can't keep a squad together. You know, I know Ten Hag's gone now, but like he keeps falling out with everyone. That's an issue. He doesn't communicate very well. Fergie was booting people out left, right, and centre who fell out with him. Like all of these things that supposedly are the reason why United are so bad now happened when we were the best club of all time. Like I just think that we hear this stuff all the time of like, oh, we want Ruud to stay because he's nice. And you're like, well, that's not why you stay. That's not why he's here. He's not here to be nice. And all this other stuff of there's the desire to keep the rest of the first team coaches with him as well. They want Darren Fletcher to stay. They like the other coaches. What, so Ten Hag was the only one you didn't like? Ten Hag is the only reason we weren't winning, is it? Every one of his coaches who did training every day, who set the cones out, who did the tactics, who implemented all of Ten Hag's ideas, they were all fabulous. But you can't possibly perform at the weekend because one of the 6 men that train you is a bit of a cold guy. Like, what the fuck is that? How is that the level that we're at? Like, I just think, like, you always hear all this stuff of, like, oh, you know, they're no good. And Roy Keane yesterday going, you know, oh, they're all good guys. It's a good group, is it? Oh, it's a good group, being sarcastic. And I like Roy Keane, and I think he's probably right that there are some bad apples in there. But there's always been bad apples in every group. And like you always hear these stories afterwards of people falling out and fighting and drinking and falling out with the manager and saying that I'm going to put in a transfer request if you don't give me this, this and this. All these things that we are led to believe are brand new to this failing, awful Man United have been going on forever. And I just think that the truth of the matter is you need better players. It's not the fact that they've got these terrible attitudes and they won't run back. Ronaldo didn't run back under Fergie. Ronaldo fucking stayed up front and did what he wanted. He didn't track back. And Rashford doesn't track back now, and all of a sudden that's unique. But really, it's because Rashford isn't scoring 40 goals a season. Yeah. We just need better players. And all of these problems go away. Like Wayne Rooney admitted, as spoke about, drinking when he was a player.
Yeah.
If that, you know, Marcus Rashford, we've seen pictures of him drinking as a player. If Rashford was playing as well as Rooney, you're allowed to have a drink. Yeah. Like that's just the facts of it. We let people get away with almost anything as long as you're winning football matches. And I just hate this whole thing of like, this whole squad's a disaster, they're all a disgrace. As people, they're awful. They're just doing the same shit everyone's always done, except they're just not quite good enough to win league titles. We just need a better squad.
Yeah, Fergie said it in his first book, I think Managing My Life was the title. He said, obviously, when he got to Manchester United, there was a massive drinking culture, which Ron Atkinson had almost encouraged. He didn't care. Yeah. He used to drink with the players. He just wasn't bothered. It's like just insane. Yeah. He even held a party when he left at his house for all the players, and Fergie was going mad because they all went there and they got leathered. And it was like, you know, matches to win, what are you doing? But Fergie inherited this drinking culture. You know, Norman Whiteside, Paul McGrath, basically alcoholics. I love them both, fantastic footballers, but they had a massive problem with alcohol. And in his book, he said that Brian Robson, similar, he used to drink all the time when he wasn't playing. Not the day before a game or whatever, but you know, the game on a Saturday. Sunday, it'd be all day in the pub. But he said I couldn't get him to change, and I was always sort of almost hamstrung with the arguments against him because he always performed. He always performed. He said he never ever once put in a performance where you could see that drinking affects it. Even in training, he said in training he would come in, and I think Brian Robson said it, over Norman Whiteside said it in his book, Paul McGrath said it. Robbo would drink with them all day, go into training on Monday, and he'd be the one who's giving the most, leading from the front when they're jogging or running around the pitches, whatever. There was no way you could look at him and go, he's faxing it in because he's half cut, and that sort of was the reason he got away with it. Brian Robson. You mentioned the other players that you mentioned, so I don't need to labour that point. The issue is we're just not winning enough football matches. We're just not.
That's the only issue.
People aren't going to stomach it because they go, you know, we went back earlier about, it doesn't matter whether you go to the game or not, whether you can afford to or not, but if you go to the game and you're spending money or you're getting up at daft o'clock in the morning to watch it on a stream or at home or whatever, you're going to be annoyed if you see players that aren't playing well enough.
Of course.
And you're going to look for reasons to be annoyed and angry rather than just, they're not quite at the standards we want. And if you see players that aren't performing at the standards you want and you think also it's because of A, B, C or D, the things you mentioned, that's just going to infuriate you even more. You talk about attitudes and players falling out with the manager. We saw it last season, didn't we? Mo Salah had a row with Jurgen Klopp on the touchline. And everyone's like, oh my God, no one cared.
No.
Because Mo Salah scores every game. So it's like, and even though Liverpool fans love Jurgen Klopp, and I can understand why, it wasn't like they all fell out with Mo Salah because he's that good that if he has a row with a manager, who gives a toss? Because he's a guy that's going to score us 35, 40 goals a season, which is, I think he's going to do again this season, unfortunately. So people can stomach it. If Mo Salah was scoring 4 goals a season and he was having a row with Jurgen Klopp, Scousers would have been going berserk.
Like, how many times in the last 10 years have we seen one of our players on the pitch have an argument with the manager the way Salah did? I can't think of one.
No.
And if it is, it's maybe a minor sort of disagreement. We saw Ronaldo look a bit pissed off when he got subbed that time, which is probably the closest we've seen to it.
Yeah, never seen anything like that where you can say them two aren't getting on.
No,
not
never.
really.
And yet, if it, I've seen bigger deals made out of the turn of a head or the throw of an arm up in the air than literally their best player having a shouting match with the manager in public. So, but like I said, it doesn't matter because Salah gets you 40 goals and assists every season.
Yeah.
And that's really all it comes down to. Like, if these players start winning games, you can do whatever you want. Within reason. Within footballing terms, you can do whatever you want. And that's literally all it comes down to. So, the whole thing of Van Nistelrooy, staying because the players like him, I just think, if he's staying, it should be because of his knowledge of Manchester United, his knowledge of the Premier League, the fact that he's a very good coach, and the fact that Ruben Amorim wants him. Not because the players go, oh, he's really nice to us. He comes round and, he stays at our house and all that, he's our mate. That's not what he's there for. And I think it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be for that reason.
Do you think we're seeing the real Ruud? Because I feel like he's been on a charm offensive ever since he arrived.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that disparagingly. I love Ruud van Nistelrooy. He's the best finisher I've ever seen, not just at United, ever, anywhere. Yeah. But I remember when we was on pre-season, very friendly towards the journalists and us lot. If you've got to class us as journalists, you can do. It's up to you. Very friendly with the fans. Just when I was in Porto, I mentioned to you, didn't I, about the fact that he came over to the fans and he kind of felt like he was the manager already, whereas Erik ten Hag obviously didn't quite do that because he was feeling the pressure, and also Ruud's getting his name sung a bit more because he's Ruud van Nistelrooy. And now you're hearing that players are keen on him staying. Yeah. Do you think this is the way he is, or do you think he's determined to do the things he feels like he needs to do to stay on at this club and to be part of this club moving forward? How do you judge it?
A lot of the comparisons I've seen between him and Solskjaer, I think, are unfair. I think just because they've both been former United players and interim managers, everyone's like, we can't ever... the idea of Ruud staying or being the manager one day is absurd. Look what happened under Solskjaer.
Don't you find that argument on the whole insane?
Yeah.
I saw people saying, we've done the whole Ruben Amorim thing with Erik ten Hag. What?
Yeah.
We've got one of the best coaches that's available before, so let's not do that again.
Yeah.
Who's won a load of trophies and has got a club that was performing at levels he should be? We don't want to do that.
No.
We did it with ten Hag, it didn't work. Like this whole thing of, we don't want to do that, we've already done it. We've done every type of manager there is anyway.
Yeah.
So that's nonsensical. It was the same idea of we couldn't possibly keep Michael Carrick after Ollie left because he's a former player. We can't do that. Yeah. So we brought in Ralph Rangnick, who was a bit of a disaster. I know his press conferences were fun, but other than that, it was woeful. And I just find that whole argument a bit odd because it's nonsensical.
It's this sort of reductive kind of like if you tick a certain sort of 3 or 4 boxes of 10,000 boxes.
Yeah.
If you tick these 3, you're just the same as everyone else who ticks these 3 boxes.
Yeah.
You used to play for United, tick. You're the interim manager, tick.
Yeah.
You must be shit, tick. Like that. I mean,
you were a striker.
You're a striker as well. Yeah,
one of the best strikers we've ever had.
Yeah. Limited sort of managerial experience at this level, tick. Okay, yeah, you're shit. Next, and this thing of foreign manager, tick. Won the league with his team that hadn't won it in a few years, tick. Under the, hasn't been managing for 20 years plus, tick. All right, Ten Hag and Amorim are the same person. Hello. That's not going to work. It just none of it makes sense. People aren't the same, and also, and as much as again, I don't mean to be negative, and I think Amorim's a very good coach, but a lot of this is going to be about timing. Which manager arrives at the point that our squad is built properly? Who is that? Because you could put Sir Alex Ferguson in charge of this team. He's not winning the league with it, and he'd do a hell of a lot better than Ten Hag did, and he might challenge for the league. And he's won league titles with squads not too much better. But he's always had great players. You
got to remember as well, Fergie's team that he took over to the title-winning team, his first team that won the title, had no players that he inherited. Yeah. Brian Robson was a sub by that point. Yeah. Brian Robson was literally number 12 in the squad. because he was on the bench. It was Inson, Chocky with the midfielders. He created an entire title-winning team, either that's through some of the academy, like Sir Ryan Giggs, or from almost all of the others were his signings.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a case of, well, he inherited and he tweets it and, within 3 years won a title. He inherited
made a new team.
Yeah, he had to make that entire new team, which is why I always rate him higher than Pep, because Pep inherited a team that had won 2 of the last 4 titles.
Yeah. And that's the thing with Amorim. That's where we find ourselves with the new manager. Can Ineos build Amorim a title-winning side more quickly than he runs out of that sort of new manager gloss? Do you know what I mean?
How far off it do you think we are from a title-winning side?
I think we can challenge for the title with good signings in the following positions: winger, striker, left back, centre mid.
Okay.
I think if we get the right signings in those 4 areas, we could win a title.
Yeah.
They have to, let's say those signings would be Salah at Liverpool, would be someone like Ashley Cole at Chelsea, I'm picking other teams on purpose here, someone like Fabinho at Liverpool and the effect that he had, or Fernandinho at City, or, whatever. And then in terms of a striker, he doesn't necessarily have to be a 250-goal Aguero kind of player, but can it be someone that consistently gets you 15, 20 goals a season? I think if we manage to link those things together, we would be challenging for a title.
I agree I'm agreeing with you, not on purpose, like, I need to agree with everything Joe, but I do just keep agreeing with you because you're talking a lot of sense for once. But, like, you've seen it with one player. You remember, like, when Bruno came in? We lost, I keep going on about this because I remember this night. We lost to Burnley 2-0 at home. Horrible night. Yeah. Just the weather was crap. We'd lost. We were 6 points, I think, off top 4. It looked like Ollie was going to get sacked. The anger was just, you could feel it from everyone. I just thought, it's another season done. It's a waste. It's, this has just been a complete shambles. You bring in a lad from Portugal who, quite highly regarded, but it wasn't like everyone was after him. I think Liverpool and Spurs had been linked with him loosely, but you bring him in for, what was it, 40-odd million, which at the time is a lot of money, but it's not that much. It wasn't like
not by comparison to what we had been spending on Lukaku and Pogba and Di Maria.
Yeah, and Bruno Fernandes doesn't just bring you his own levels of being mint, but also all of a sudden Martial starts firing in goals. Rashford starts scoring goals. Pogba looks rejuvenated when he comes back into the team after a layoff. There's a belief. There's just an air of, hang on a minute, there's something's going down here. Jesse Lingard starts getting important goals. It's just like, whoa, what's going on here? It's like everything just started happening. Because that one signing, so you bring in 4, or you bring in a striker who, all of a sudden, if Garnacho and Rashford don't score, don't worry, someone else does. Yeah. It's not just a case of, well, we've got to rely on Joshua Zirkzee or hope that Rasmus Højlund kicks on. That can make a big difference. So the quality can make a difference. You're right, if we can get it right. I just don't think we can afford too many missteps.
No, we can't.
Because we've had so many.
And if we have a bad summer window, then there's a very real possibility that Ruben Amorim comes in this season and follows the path that all the other managers that we've had, other than David Moyes, has followed, which is come in, turn the team around, get them playing better football, winning more matches, and finish in a league position that is roughly equivalent to the quality of the squad. Yeah. I think when Louis van Gaal finished, was it 4th with us?
4th in his first season.
I think we're about the 4th best team in England at that point, because we'd lost a lot of that old guard that had won the league the last time, and we're trying to bring new players in, the likes of Jesse Lingard and Rashford, and certain players coming in. I'm not sure if Rashford was there the first season, but you get my point. We'd moved away from the Rio Ferdinands and the Manjevic's, and we needed to find some other options. Then eventually you have that first season like Jose did. We finished 2nd under Ole. We finished 3rd and then 2nd, and then you hit the level that is the squad you have. We get the best out of the squad we can. 81 points under Jose. I think that squad was capable of maybe 85 at a push. I think basically that he got everything there was to get out of that team. I think finishing 3rd and winning a trophy under Ten Hag was about as good as we could possibly have expected with the squad that he had. I don't think we had the best squad in the league. I don't think we had the 2nd best squad in the league. I think he finished where we should finish with that league, with that team. And then what happens is, because the owners aren't buying the right players, you spend 80 million on an Anthony, or you spend maybe 60 million on Højlund, where 90 million on Kane would have taken you a different direction. And I don't think Højlund was a waste of money, but if we're looking at what would take a team forward, the Glazers have then misspent money, and you lose that momentum. You don't push on like you should do, because the squad doesn't push on. Like, we've had the second best team in England and we didn't make it the first best. What we did instead is we got Fred, Lee Grant and Dalot. We needed to take that team to be the best team in England. Fatal. It killed Jose Mourinho's time at Man United, and then, as we've said so many times, he killed it himself. Ten Hag, again, we finished third and win a trophy, and who do we get? Højlund, Mason Mount, who's not played for us, essentially, and Onana, who I think has been a decent signing. And Højlund, again, he's still one for the future. Like, we need at some point to have one of the best teams in England, otherwise you ain't going to win the title. No. You can't win the league unless you're Leicester with the fifth best team in England. It doesn't happen. You need a very good manager and a very good squad. And now this is where Ineos have to come in, because I expect an incline under Amorim. We might even challenge for top 4 this season. And then you have to go, here's a new striker, here's a winger, and here's a left back. And then next season you can push on again, and then you challenge him for the title in a couple of years' time. Otherwise, we're just going to be sat back here going, oh, maybe Amorim was shit as well, like all these other managers that have been brilliant until they got to Man United.
I've got a question for you. I just want to read through some of the comments because some of them have been waiting for ages. My Rametta says, players should have no say on what managerial staff the manager gets to have. The minute players get these decisions, the power dynamic shifts from the manager. No more player power over managers. Joe C has been a member of the academy for 46 months, says, I love Ruud, but whatever the players want, Amorim should do the opposite. Can't give in to any of these players. Do you know what I mean? What was that? Rasmus, you're in goal. What? You didn't want to play there. You're playing there. Yeah. I like that. Yeah, let's do the opposite. Loads of other people as well. Get involved in the chat in the comments. Marcus says Garnacho needs to play wing back or get sold. Yeah, I mean, also Ross Murphy's then talking about comparing Pep and Fergie's mental. Yeah, I agree with that. Good to see Real Reds talking there as well. Always a pleasure. I wanted to ask you something because you've mentioned this. I think you said it on camera. You certainly said it off camera to me about Amorim coming in and being in this weird sort of time in the season where you almost feel like you're coming in and any small hope or whatever delusions, if you want to call it that, of a title challenge have already gone. Yeah. But there's enough of the season left to do something with it. You're still in all the cup competitions. Yeah. There's still 28 games left in the Premier League, and you've already won a few. Is it 3, I think? I think, yeah. Do you think he'll get time if this season isn't successful in terms of... He has to. Do you think, I'm saying get time, do you think he'll start getting judged harshly if he doesn't do something this season? Do you think people are ready to go, okay, he's coming into a squad that's all over the gaff, hence the reason the manager got sacked. Maybe he needs this season just to find his feet. Or do you think people go, no, it's November, fuck off, you can sort it?
No, I think this season has to be about... I do think that we'll see an improvement. If we don't see any improvement and we finish 15th or 14th or wherever we are, then that might be a real issue for him. If it's just an immediate...
Was it De Boer at Palace who just came in and lost 5 on a spin or whatever it was?
Yeah, like he's a transplanted organ that the body just rejected. Like, if that happens and immediately it's clear that the players are like, this guy's nuts.
This guy's insane. He's playing Mazraoui in the 10.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Onana has to play on his head now. Like some sort of, I don't know, bizarre spinning top. Like, if he's just doing mad stuff that immediately doesn't work and we finish worse than we are now, we'll come back to it. I do expect us to get better. And it is weird, like you said, we're in this tricky period where he could conceivably have a very good season now and finish 5th. We could be the 3rd best team in England from now to the end of the year and not get Champions League football. Yeah. Which is all well and good, and as logical, rational fans watching their team play good football will go, we get it, mitigating circumstances, we started 7 points off the top 4, fair enough. But then if next season starts badly, and all of a sudden it's, well, we're 6th now and we didn't even get top 4 last season and all of a sudden those excuses that we had under Ten Hag last season of the injuries were sort of diabolically bad, no one has mentioned that this season. I've barely heard a single person talk about how many injuries we had last year. It's just you were terrible last season and we continue to be terrible this season. You've got to go, fair enough. But if Amorim could conceivably have a lot of pressure on him without ever sort of even getting top 4, and he could have done really well. Yeah, that was my only worry about sacking a manager this early in the season. If you sack someone in January, you go, top 4's dead. Don't even bother. Just try and get your players through at the back, playing a good style. Now, we're sat here and I'm saying it, top 4's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
And he will be judged according to those sort of parameters that we see in front of us. That Chelsea aren't that good, Villa are decent, but at some point they're going to drop out the top four.
Well, they had a bit of a bad one, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Was it 3-1 in the end?
4-1. 4-1. I think it was.
Forest aren't going to finish top four. Maybe we can still do it. And then he's going to get judged by those standards. So I just think we need to back the manager. And like I said, the real problem here and the real thing that needs to happen is Ineos have to build him a title-winning side before he gets sacked. That's literally, you as soon as you sign a new manager, start the watch. You've got 2 seasons and 4 months. And if you haven't got him a side that's capable of winning the league, get a new manager in.
Yeah.
That is what has to happen. This is where Ashworth, Wilcox and Barada in particular earn all that money. Because you need to build this guy a title-winning side now, or certainly one ready to challenge for titles.
Do you think that could go some way to protecting him a little bit as well? Because the thing with Ten Hag was people looked at Anthony in particular, which was a signing he never recovered from.
No, he didn't.
Really. And Mount. And they were definitely his signings. Mm-hmm. He wanted those players. Now, he didn't choose the fee. I get that. He didn't negotiate it. He said to the club, I want those players. Get them, mate. And they did.
Yeah.
But it was 140 million quid or whatever, 130 million quid or whatever. The maths isn't a strong point.
140.
Yeah. Down to Swanee, basically.
Yeah.
Other than, sort of half a good season from Anthony.
Yeah.
We didn't see anything remotely near good enough.
Certainly by the time Ten Hag left, Mount still could.
Yeah.
I don't think Anthony can. But by the time Ten Hag left, those 2 players had a massive negative effect on Ten Hag's job security.
100%.
Massive negative
100%.
effect. Yeah.
Do you think that because it's we kind of open so we know that he's head coach for a reason, Ashworth's come in for a reason, Wilcox is coming for a reason, they're going to be working very closely with him when it comes to transfers. In other words, probably telling him which players he can have.
Yeah.
Do you think that might give him a little bit more protection if these players are misfiring? Because let's say, for example, if he had arrived in the summer and we brought in Joshua Zirkzee and it was an Ineos signing and he didn't work out, he could turn and say, well, you know what, I can only work with these players. Do you think that might help him a little bit? Or
Massively.
Do you think
I think anything United can do to take pressure off the manager is a bonus for us as fans and us as a club. I think that no manager on earth, except maybe the Madrid and Barca managers, certainly no manager in England, is under the same amount of scrutiny as the United manager. So anything you can do to strip away that scrutiny will help him do the best he can. Like you said, Joe, how often was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer lambasted for the 80 million signing of Harry Maguire? Constantly.
Yeah.
It was all the time.
Yeah.
You signed Harry Maguire for 80 million. You thought he was worth 80 million. You brought him in as your captain. That was one of the reasons he left when he did. You look at, you can go back all the way through, but like you mentioned before, Anthony might as well be Ten Hag's conjoined twin as far as his reputation is concerned.
Yeah.
They are one and the same. That signing is 15% of why Ten Hag got sacked by itself.
I agree.
It's such a massive thing. So if you can divorce the signings from the manager to a certain extent, obviously if we go and sign Gokares and 3 sporting players, it's going to be hard to pretend that that's all Ineos. But assuming that we don't do that, we can say he's the coach, he's the head coach.
Yeah.
And even if obviously he's going to have input, and I want him to have input, if some of the signings don't work out, if we brought him in for a relatively fair fee, so there's no 80 million Anthony, 70 million Casemiro, if we can do that, that takes pressure off him. And it also means that he's not going to be there having to defend this publicly and having to think, I have to play that guy, this guy, that. It takes the politics away internally as well. Because he can just go, you know what? I didn't pick him. He's not playing well at the minute. I'm just going to drop him for 10 games or 5 games. Yeah. I do think at times Ten Hag felt like he couldn't do that with certain players.
Yeah.
And by the time he did do it, it was a little bit too late.
No, I agree completely. Yeah, well said. Before we wrap up, my friend, Wally of the Week time. We've got a graphic.
We love the graphic.
We love the Wally of the Week graphic. It's the best thing ever. Who is your Wally of the Week?
There's a few candidates in there. I think little Manscaped piece as well. That's all right. Don't worry about that. I think it's something that happened on another YouTube channel.
That was going to be mine. Talk about Flex on the United View.
And
I'm glad you brought it up.
What happened to Flex on the United View yesterday after the game, being racially abused by just an absolute idiot.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it. An absolute idiot. It's shit that he had to go through what he went through. It's shit that sort of thing is still prevalent and that someone thinks they can say that whilst they're on camera and on mic and somehow, that's acceptable. He's absolutely disgusting. And I just think it's an absolute joke and I think it's horrendous. and hopefully Flex is all right. And I released a video and we've wished him well on social media, but I just thought, it's worth saying. I think Wally doesn't really cover it, really, does it? But I thought now is probably the time to, wish him all the best and say that I'm sorry that he went through what he went through.
No, I agree completely, and it's sad and sickening. It infuriates me that people think they could come down to Old Trafford, use that language, get away with it, do it on camera as well. Yeah. And it's, it's going to be all right. And I feel sorry for Flex having to listen to that. And you could see I think he did a video earlier talking about it, and it's not nice. I've been there myself and I've had grief off fans and stuff. And it does hurt you. So yeah, I agree with that. Can I just throw in an extra one though?
Go on.
Quickly. Our mate at Sky Sports, Gary Cotterill.
He loves it.
He's been at it again, hasn't he? Who is this guy? Where'd you get this guy from?
Right.
Go on, give us a bit of context.
For those who weren't watching, Ruben Amorim was doing his pre-match press conference before the Sporting City game, where obviously there's a lot of United interest. He's the new manager, and he's playing against our second biggest rival in Man City. Gary Cotterill from Sky Sports, who's the same guy that chased Erik ten Hag through the car park saying, what message have you got for the fans? Aren't you letting the fans down by not saying stuff? Being very kind of very old school sort of gotcha journalism, where he's trying to, if the subject of the interview doesn't want to talk, then they're letting people down, when really he just wants his little few minutes. He was talking to Ruben Amorim, insisting maybe half a dozen times that he answered him and spoke to him in English, because he was speaking through a translator, Amorim, as he is absolutely more than welcome to do, because he is the manager of a Portuguese club. He is Portuguese. He can do it however he wants to do it. And he's going, could you give it, one thing that would be nice is to hear your lovely English. Could you reply in English? And Amorim went, no, I want to do it through the translator. He went, oh, go on. So you speak to us in English. We know you can speak English. Will you answer this question in English? No, I don't want to. Do you not think you're letting your English fans down? A lot of people would want to hear you in English. You're not letting them down by not speaking English. Just fucking leave it, mate. Ask your question and fuck off. And you can also tell that when the other Sky presenters talk to Gary Cotterill, they know they're talking to a bit of a character. Like they all talk like, oh, Gary's over there. What's going on there, Gary? Like he's known to be the sort of loose cannon, bit of an old school journo. You just think, shut up. Leave him alone. He's not even talking about United. All you want to do is ask him questions about United and make him speak in English. For what reason?
It's very sort of Fox Newsy. Let's get the clip in it. Let's get the clip of, even if you've got the clip of me, not necessarily the interviewee, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And I think it was Erik ten Hag who refused to take a question from him in his first season, and I think everyone agreed with that. I know Erik ten Hag can have a bit of a prickly relationship with the media at times, but Gary Cotterill, he's just got form for anything like chasing people through car parks. Yeah. And he always does that. I hate that, right? Don't you think you owe the fans?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, you need to
get... Why are you making this about us? Why are you using us as United fans as fuel to have a go at someone on our behalf when we didn't fucking ask you to?
No,
he's not letting me down by not answering a question in English.
I don't need Gary Cotterill to fight any of my battles ever, and nor would I want him to.
Grow up.
Grow up. So I'm glad you agreed with me on that one. I'll name this podcast later as Gifted a Membership, as they often do. We appreciate that. Thanks to everyone who got involved in the chat and the comments. Ronnie will be back soon as well. I know there's a few people who are asking about him. Also, Andy Tate will be back when he's ready as well. Don't worry, we've not fallen out with him. He's still a big part of this channel. We love him. Joe, always a pleasure, never a chore. Go and check out what have you lot been up to on the Sloppy Joe's podcast?
Doing podcasts and that.
Pumpkins and that. So quite a scary graphic with you lot on it.
A bit spooky, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I use it when my kids are being naughty. I'll show them that and they do as they're told. Yeah, perfect. To go and check that out on
show a picture of Gary Cotterill.
And that's classed as child abuse. I'm not doing that. Go and check out the Sloppy Joe's podcast. You know where to find me as well. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Check out Manscaped as well. There's a link in the description. 20% off and free shipping. That's been Joe. I've been Jay. This has been the Paddock Podcast. Thanks for watching.